Okay, it's working. Yes. Hopefully people can even hear me. Hello, it's working. Yes. Ooh, ah, da, ba, ba, doo, ba. Hello, ba, da. Can anyone hear me? I sure hope this works. I'm not hearing anything from my own computer, and that's distressing. I sure hope this works. Oh, okay, good. It's working. Mute my own thing. Hey, everybody. So I'm just I got it set up. It took me about 15 minutes. I haven't done this in a very, very long time. So, bear with me. A little stressful. Hold on, let me see what's that. Okay, and hopefully this thing is working properly. And you can all see the screen. And I got the window set up so I can actually see I can see the messages and all that fun jazz. Watch as I chew a cuticle because that's attractive and that's what you all wanted to see. Even letting you actually see me, which I didn't have to do. Hey everybody. So I'm just oh, you don't need to hear me through my microphone because there's a time delay on everything, which is really weird. But I have the live chat. All right. Excellent. Thank you, Joseph. So yeah, to read what I just wrote. Hey everyone, welcome to the live drawing stream. Feel free to ask questions and gab away. The more interaction, the more fun this will be. I have my screen set up so that I can, in fact, see questions and see everything as it's popping up there. So it helps if I don't close out that window, though. Yeah, just throwing that out there. Okay, so it is officially going on 7 o'clock. I'm going to give some folks a few more minutes to roll in for the 7 o'clock stream. And you can all see the backgrounds and you can see the window, which is my drawing window here in Clip Studio Paint, which is the software that I use to do the strips in. And this is an upcoming strip. I'll end up probably repeating a lot of this information as I go when new people come in, stuff like that. But again, so yeah, I do all my work in Clip Studio Paint. Digitally, I've been doing it for the strip for a little while now, and this is a strip that will be running in probably the second week of January. New strips will run on Wednesdays again, once a week. There'll be between 4 and 6 panels on average, give or take. 4 is a lot easier for me to manage because aside from doing Finding D, I'm also working on Giant Girl Adventures with my friend Sabrina, and I work on those pages. Those pages take a few days. This takes about an hour, hour and a half or so to ink a full page. The flag layout. And yeah, so if you have any specific questions, I'm still kind of letting everything percolate while it's only just now 7. I don't want to jump right into the art and give people a chance to chime on and appear if at all possible and see what's going on. Let's see anything. Because there's also a chat message that comes up in the actual Restream app. So I'm going to check that every now and again to make sure I'm not ignoring anybody. I try to work as much ahead as possible. Joseph asked, "Oh my, you're actually working ahead?" I also do that. I read out the questions out loud so that if anyone's rewatching this at a later date or something, it makes sense. So they don't have to, because even though the messages appear, you don't know when they appear necessarily. It's complicated. Um, yeah, I like working ahead. When I first started my first online comic, which was Dandy and Company back in 2001, I had 3 months of strips in the buffer, and that was a daily strip. I was doing that 7 days a week, and I had dozens of strips just sitting and waiting. And before that, before 6 months was out, I was working a week ahead. I mean, that's how easy you can lose your buffers. When Sabrina and I started up with her comic Giant Girl, we had an 8-week buffer and we only have 3, and I never technically missed a week. I missed, no, I missed technically, okay, missed 3 weeks of a vacation, COVID, and my pancreatitis. So I did miss 3 weeks, but I still lost about 4 weeks just through. Oh, I worked on that and it went, instead of getting it done Sunday, I got it done Monday or Tuesday. And you do that a few times and boom, a week just vanishes. You don't even realize it. I want to try to get about maybe 2 months of weekly strips in the can before I launch in January. So that I've already got one. The first week of January is done. That's already saved and ready to load. This will be the second week. And as you can see, let's see, since we're a few minutes in, I can start talking about this a bit more. I'm gonna zoom in. I want to see how this looks. Make sure that it actually functions properly. Oh, yep. Okay, cool. This is kind of new for me too. So I'm looking at my screen to see what you're all seeing on the restream. So thank you for bearing with me a little bit. This is my first time doing this. I want to try to do this every Tuesday. For whoever wants to come along, because we have a kind of a week set schedule. Monday's kind of my day off. Tuesday, I like to work on Finding D. Wednesday and Thursday, I work on Giant Girl pages. And then on Saturday, Friday is kind of a floating night. So either we do karaoke or something like that. And then Saturday is usually finishing up the Giant Girl pages. So as you can see here, it's me in a hospital bed with the doctor. This is going to be the storyline I'm going to come back to the strip with, is going to be chronicling the pancreatitis that put me in the hospital back in July, when nothing quite as much fun as having one of your major organs just stop working and try to eat you. That locked me down for, I was in the hospital for I think 4 days, and kind of still not 100%, but I'm close to like 95%. I can eat pretty much everything, but I haven't had like, there's a lot of things that I had to change. As a result, I lost a lot of weight, which will be showing up in the strip, because of course, the whole idea behind Finding D as a comic is that it started when I had first transitioned. And upon coming out, it was a lot of drama and a lot of stress and a lot of everyday stuff that really is just kind of background noise now. But I found that I was writing these really depressing blogs where I was complaining about everything. And I'm like, this is really making everything worse. So I decided to start making my things as comic strips. where I was telling the little stories of, everyday things. In that first year or 2 years, I wouldn't go down to the store for toilet paper without putting a full face on. Now I'm just like, fuck everyone in the world is. But, it's you go through these stages, and so rather than dwell on them negatively, I started doing the comic strips because it was a way to put punchlines on them. If I could find a way to make these stressors funny, it made it easier for me to deal with them, and that's where the strip kind of began, and it's become its own thing since then. More often than not, it's really just kind of a floating what happens in our life, with me and Heidi. So, um yeah, so there's that. So yeah, this is gonna be a bunch of strips that are gonna be kind of dealing with what happened with the pancreatitis and how we got through that and all that fun jazz, or lack of fun for that part. So, okay, we're about 6 minutes in here, got a couple of people watching, don't know quite how many people are still here, 1, 2, at least 3 showed up, let's see. Oh, hey, 5 people are watching, ah, ha, ha. Say hi, everybody. Not verbally, I can't hear you, but pardon me. Checking the restream, make sure I don't have anybody trying to talk to me through there. But yeah, it looks like I've got a few people on Restream watching and a few people here watching through Facebook. It's also streaming on my YouTube channel, so hopefully it's going through there. Okay, let's see. We've got Richard Wallace. Hello, and Gabe. Hello. Hi, Desi. So yeah, I'm gonna get started. Let's see. Chat that I'm going to tell the people in my chat that I'm doing the video. Maybe it'll be a hint, they'll come. But yeah, okay. We're about 10 minutes in, and let's get started. So, as you can see, I had a little template here that I work with. I've blown it up in Clip Studio Paint. Is my favorite software to work in because the inking tools are just really fluid and dynamic. I get a lot of great brushwork styles and stuff like that. That's going to be annoying. I hope they don't bleep through the whole thing. I don't know how to turn the sound off on that without turning anything else off. I'll get all this figured out. So yeah, so I work in Clip Studio Paint. I used to work in Photoshop, and the brushes are good in Photoshop, but they don't have that great reactive thin, thick line. This is a brush that I got. I can't remember the name of the group it came from, but it's literally called Lando Calibrushing. And I love this brush. Right now it's set to black, and I usually work at a 17-point brush, and my canvas is 600 DPI so that I get a nice fine reduction. It looks really nice when it prints. I set my brush at no small, I'll go higher than 17 if I'm doing like something big and chunky. But I don't let my brush go any lower than 17 points so that it doesn't do what I couldn't do with regular tools. Um, and that's basically just, I discovered that working on some of the Giant Girl pages where I would reduce my brush down to like a 5 or a 6 because I could get really fine details and draw super teeny tiny faces. But then you look at them on the page and you can't see them. The faces have become tiny. They shrunk down to become just impossible to see. So I limit myself to a 17-point brush. It's called Lando Calibrushing, and um, just to show you why I love it so much, like just a little bit of pressure, you get this beautiful fine line. You apply a little bit more pressure, and look at that juicy incline. That wonderful thin thick. I love a good thin thick line. Always wanted that. And I can ink with a traditional like actual brush. It's just not something I'm good at. And it takes me I gotta sit really, really long and noodle at it to get a traditional brush to make the kind of lines I want. I want that, that line, that beautiful brush line like that Jeff Smith or Jay Fosgate gets. That Walt Kelly luscious brush line. I don't have the hand stability or the patience, honestly. Right now, I've reduced this down smaller because I'm going to hold down the shift key, and that enables me to do some straight lines because I want to do the little handles on the sides of the bed. Oh, didn't mean to do that. And for that, I don't want to do them freehand. I want them to look nice and mechanical. I don't do the straight lines too often in here, so it's a little bit of a learning curve. Um, it's from a pack of brushes that I got for like 15 bucks, 800 brushes, Richard. I will answer with a link later to your comment. So I'll hit a reply on your comment and send you a link to where I got the brushes from. There's a ton of stuff in there, but I don't want to interrupt the feed to try to go find it. And for the life of me, I cannot remember what it's called. Go back up to 17 points, and I'm just going to do the like draw the rest of the thing, round out the corners. And now with Finding D, because it's a comic strip, I'm not as worried as I am when I'm doing like, say, Giant Girl, of making sure that the lines are pristinely perfect or that the backgrounds are all that anal. I can get a little sketchy and loosey as I want to go. So get some of the bed in here. Oh, no worries, no worries. And yeah, if anyone else has any questions what to ask while I'm working, please do, because the more I can see the questions popping up as I'm working, so the more questions I get, the more I'm not just trying to make up what I'm going to talk about. Now, while I try to do as much of this directly as possible, and I try not to fall into the old Sprite webcomic thing where it's all just cut and paste, I do a little cut and pasting, especially when there's going to be elements that are not going to change from panel to panel. In that case, it's stuff like, this corner of the bed is not going to change from panel to panel. So what I'm going to do is draw this corner of the bed and give this a little bit of a thicker line. It helps the thin, applying a slightly thicker line to layer elements that are further in the foreground closer really helps to press the feeling of depth so that objects really recede in space. And it's something that I didn't do for the longest time. I was a little lazy with my line weights. And I think, in some of the earlier Finding D strips, it really shows and kind of bugs me that I can see that. I'm like, ugh, I really should have taken more time. So what I'm going to do is, because this element here, this corner of the bed is going to be the same in a bunch of panels, I am going to cheat, do a copy, paste. Because that's not going to change in this panel. And that's not going to change in this panel. My hand is going to be going over the railing a little bit, I believe. And here, it's not going to change, but it is going to be a bit more of a zoom in. So I'm going to expand it a little bit. Ta, followed by da. So reduce that down back to one layer. Large visible layers. So that way the panels where things aren't changing, like, Oh, thank you, Gray. I appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy. Hope I reduced too much. Ha. Reduce, merge selected layers. Anything like that that's not going to change. It's not an organic object like a person. I ain't going to draw it over and over and over again if the camera angle hasn't shifted. Doctor here is just a generic background character. I'm not basing him on any of the actual doctors I had. Had a few that were quite nice, actually. I just need kind of a generic doctor figure. But you can see is one of the reasons I love these brushes, this Landau Calibrusian. I get that great thin, thick line, and I really love that line. Ooh, pardon me, got a little bit of a burp. And I just really like the way it looks. I prefer it to the more dead line that some of the earlier strips had, and just gives me the look I like. Drawing the big old cartoony sausage fingers for my characters here. One of the advantages, it's always weird because I switch over and go work on like Giant Girl, and it's so much more realistic. Yeah, thank you, Richard. Yeah, it getting the switching over to Clip. I started on Clip Studio last year. God, it's been about a year now. Wow. And I was hesitant to switch over for the longest time. I had so many artists, people telling me, "Oh, it's so much better. It's so much better." I'm like, I work fine, and I like Photoshop, and I'm comfortable with it, and I'm paying for a monthly subscription, which I still have to because of graphic design work that I can't do in Clip Studio. But I was really hesitant to switch over to Clip Studio, and then they went on set a 50% off sale to where it was only like it was like 35 or something dollars last year. I can't remember exactly, but it was cheap. I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I had a little bit of extra cash at the time. And I went for it, and oh my goodness, I'm so glad I did. So how did I just drew those little nubs, and I forgot how to draw what I was supposed to draw, which is a hand flipping over the piece of paper. So let's see. Ha! I have a piece of paper. There you go. Do that kind of stuff all the time. Where you're trying to figure something out, and you just got to kind of act it out a little bit. A little texture to the clipboard here. I just kind of overdo it with the line work a little bit, but it's my thing at this point. Yeah, for the longest time, I was not happy with my line work. I was experimenting with different tools to try to get to where I wanted it. It just took forever, and this Clip Studio is just beautiful for it. It really is very, very responsive to the pressure that I put down, everything. A little bit of shadow there underneath the little doctor coat. And yeah, we're going to try to figure out ways to set some of these up for some of the Giant Girl stuff as well, but that's more spoilery. It's a little trickier, and I'm not as worried about the spoilers. Anybody who's been following my page knows I was in the hospital and was quite sick. And there's no punchlines on you can't see the layering. The lettering is done in Photoshop. Now, again, one thing I do is I go over it with an outline after I've finished the characters to kind of give them a nice thicker control line, a little holding line around them. Helps them pop off the page, I think. So how's everyone doing? I'm gonna check to see if I've got anyone in there. Nope, no messages. Dun, 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 dun. Looks like I still got a good 5 folks here. Hope everyone is doing okay and had a good day. Forgot to draw his arm holding the actual clipboard in his hand. I'm a professional. Okay, we're getting into the nitty-gritty here. That's a little too thick. Stuart, Heidi, doing great. That is awesome to hear, Stuart. And Richard, day is going great. I have to bounce though. Thanks for the stream. You are very welcome, Richard. I will send you that information when the stream is over. Glad you enjoyed it. Took me a while in working on the comic for Finding D to kind of get a comfort zone around drawing a cartoon version of myself. I'm still a little self-conscious about my quote comic character being me. Um, it's just still kind of weird to me. So, but it took me a couple of years before I felt like the cartoon version of me was where I wanted it to be. If I look back at some of those earlier strips and I'm just kind of like, ooh, that really didn't work. But I think I got the hang of it. I think I got a little bit of a nice rhythm going with the design, nice and simplified. Nice little cartoony approach. Like some of the earlier strips, I really just didn't know how broad or cartoony I wanted to go with my caricatures of myself. It went kind of all over the place. Getting a nice curve is tricky. Oh, I forgot to set up the time lapse, but only most of the panel's been done, so. I always do a time lapse in Clip Studio. That's something I love is that it records everything and compresses it all down to like 30 seconds or 60 seconds or whatever, so you can play the videos back really, really quick. No sound, obviously, but thicken up my outline a little bit. Because again, I think it really helps me the art to pop off the page a little bit better. There's more of a little bit of that little bounce of curl there that I always draw. Cartoon me has much better volume to her hair. My own hair is flat in comparison. So yeah, if anyone else has any questions whilst the video is going, feel free to ask. Doesn't have to be about the page. It can just be random questions about anything. I may not be able to answer them if they're completely random, but I'll give it a shot. I like to put a little bit of different texture on the different materials. You know, the blanket, I want to look a little different, so I'm going to give it some little bit of a cross hatching. Stuff like that. And got Heidi back here. Because Heidi was definitely there for a huge chunk of the initial visits. Capturing just the right line that feels like what I did in the sketch is always tricky. Also, Heidi is an interesting development as well because she's just as a character design, certain things really evolved for both of us over time. Like the pointy nose on Heidi. Heidi doesn't actually have a pointy nose. It's just kind of she has a straight nose of fairly average length. But in developing the caricatures for the strip, a lot of work went into figuring out, you know, it was something that actually, when I draw Poe, our dog, that we figured out early on was that don't try to draw a poodle. Don't try to make it look like an actual poodle. Draw what Poe feels like. Draw Poe's energy, um, and get close enough in the details. And I mean, people have at shows recognized Heidi and I from the way I draw. So I'm doing something right, even though the likeness isn't direct. Um, and I'm not trying to do a caricature at the, at a state fair or something. Some water with Kool-Aid cherry because I'm healthy. Oh, it's sugar-free. God, did Poe hear me talking about him downstairs? Okay, so we're about a half hour in. I'm planning on these going for about an hour. So if you're like, hey, Martin. Oh, wait, there's an accent on there. Is that Martin or am I pronouncing that wrong? Is it Martine? I don't want to presume. How are you doing? How's everyone doing? I'll repeat that. And for anyone who is new coming in just now, working on a new Finding D strip. Thank you, Martine, which I overpronounced there in my correction. Ah, Agnes, that's easy as well. Thanks. I've been meaning to set back up, and it's a matter of getting a schedule going, and finally figured I'm working on them again on Tuesdays. And I mean, I haven't been working on Finding D for quite a while, and I can't do live streams really of the other comic stuff with Sabrina, Giant Girl Adventures, because that's all spoilery stuff. So we haven't done a lot of live streams for that because I can't be drawing a page of Giant Girl because it's not going to run for weeks, and all of a sudden you're going to be seeing all kinds of cool stuff that are not going to appear for weeks. Whereas with Finding D, it's a comedy strip, and without the punchline, the gags aren't quite as big of a deal that you get to see them. And I don't care about spoilers. So here, D eats a cheeseburger. There's a spoiler. Ah, good to know. Good to know. That's Magnus, you are a citizen of the universe. Oh, you know what? I did not pencil in a drink, and I should have. Myself something to drink here, a soda. You need the sword. So yeah, it's been a while, and this strip that I'm drawing here is part of the reason why. Let me zoom out a little bit so we can see the whole page again. So what I'm doing here is, and I'll do this every now and again in the videos, kind of reintroduce, hey, Sabrina! reintroduce what I'm doing. So this is going to be one of the strips for mid-January. And it's going to be a little series of 3 or 4 strips chronicling my time in the hospital back in July with pancreatitis, because that's the main reason the strip went on hiatus. And as I really needed to, recoup and get back to, get my head back together before I even, that table's wonky, before I even considered going back to, adding a second comic back into my schedule. And plus I'm working on novels, and I got a lot of stuff going on. Busy. But now that I'm feeling a lot better, I'm feeling more in my own head, all that jazz. So I'm working on a new strip here. I'm working in Clip Studio Paint for anyone who's new to the stream here and is wondering. I absolutely love this software. I get this really great thin, thick lines that I really, really love. And it's the closest approximation I can get to actually inking with a real brush on paper, but so much less time consuming for me. I could get these lines working with a brush on paper, but it would take, whereas this strip I can, like, if I'm not actually narrating it, I can probably do a strip like this in about an hour. This might take a little bit longer to do per se. However, if I were going to try to draw this on paper with a brush, it would take me, all night to pull off a strip with this level of line work. Whereas, as you can see here, it's going pretty quick. Yeah, I'd say on average, most Finding D strips are between an hour and 2 hours to ink. Maybe another half hour, 40 minutes for the tones. The pencils themselves maybe take about 20 minutes. I got it down pretty quick, and it's nice. It's simple line art. It's not too complicated. Try to get a nice little burger texture in here. And again, I'm stopping to, zoom out and show people stuff and answer questions. And I don't usually narrate while I'm actually drawing. So all that slows me down just a little bit because, I get these pregnant pauses where I'm like, you have to say something. It's a video, D. You have to say something. So yeah, if anyone has any additional questions, do not hesitate to ask. I can see the chat screen pop up and lets me know if there's anything going on. And again, doesn't have to be related to the page. It can be any question you want. Or do karaoke while I draw. I could do karaoke, but I don't want the video to get flagged. Copyright violation because I break out in something from the Breakfast Club or something. Trying to think about what my standards in karaoke are. Tiny Dancer. You may be right. Come Together, the Beatles. Satisfaction if I'm in good voice. I'm not in good voice right now. Oh, awesome. Also, happy birthday. Headed to karaoke. Like that line broke up a little bit. Okay, so I can there's one song I can sing. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Gabriel. Happy birthday to you. It's not as much fun without having a whole group of people join in. I mean, you all might have been singing. I don't know though. Again, cartoon me's hair has much nicer volume than real world me. But if my cartoon avatar can't have nicer hair than me, then what's the point? Thank you. Trying to get that nose just right. There we go. Again, cartoon avatars. Why I'm not gonna it's still a potato. I'm gonna give myself at least a few perks. Nicer hair. Yeah. Slightly perkier boobs. The fun stuff. So that's another thing I like though, that even with my brush set at about 17 points, if I put down just a little bit of pressure, I can still get really nice fine lines. Just get my distended burger eating jaw for the sake of the cartoon. My autobiographical webcomic returns this Friday and turns 10 years. Ooh, very, very nice. Yes, it would. I mean, I did draw that. I drew the nubbly phase. I drew all the phases, warts and all, throughout the last few years that I've been doing this strip. I'm definitely not trying to, you know, sugarcoat the process, as it were. There we go. My under boob line. Do a little bit more of a slightly thicker outline again. Another nice advantage here is that with Finding D, I can just exist in these backgroundless voids that I fill in with a gray tone later. I don't have to worry about the background as much. It really is just about the cartoon gags and the expression and the joke. I'm not trying to get into the cartoonists hall of fame here with on virtue of line counting. Or like you can get a medal for how many crosshatched lines and background chairs I put in. I'll probably end up doing like a gray silhouette of people in the background or something like that. I usually do that for crowd scenes. Yeah, I mean, I sometimes try to give myself something like there's going to be hold on, went a little too far on that line there. It's like if you look here back in the first panel, there is going to be an indication of curtains. Super easy, but I'm going to draw that a little later once all the foregrounds are in, because I'll draw it once, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. Because it's, it's not like the background behind me in the world changed. This needs a little something extra. So yeah, I mean, this is basically the process of a strip. This is kind of how I do the line art. Go in, try to get the nice thick thin going and all that fun jazz. Speaking of karaoke. It is absolutely a thing I do as often as is possible. Yes. My spidey sense was probably tingling about the impending pancreatitis, brought on by a number of factors, not the least of which was a lot of greasy food. Being the artist and writer, do you write a script beforehand or go straight to sketching the layout once you have the script in your head? Used to do it the second way. I used to just get a rough idea and start sketching the strip out. Or I'd have like a little notepad where I would doodle out frames of what I kind of want it to look like. Lately, I've actually been writing scripts for the strips in advance, and in Google Drive, I have a little document of my script ideas, which is great because then I can, if I have an idea and I'm, out at karaoke or whatever, I can just open up my Google Drive document for finding the strip ideas and fill them right in wherever I'm at. So that's super, super convenient. I love that. And it's helped me the actually scripting them out to make them a little bit more streamlined. And I get to really kind of go in and play with the jokes and work out some of the timing a little bit. Whereas when I was doing it the other way, it had a tendency to just kind of meander. And while that works, and sometimes I do, having a script in advance has definitely helped me. I have doodled down comic ideas on just about every surface that I could bring with me. Um, and yeah, you want to get that idea. You don't want to lose that idea. And yeah, now with the smartphone, I can just write it down wherever I'm at. Um, and then, come home, get on my computer and edit it and, really tweak the dialogue. Sometimes I'll share it with Sabrina and, brainstorm stuff like that since, we have a really good working relationship for Giant Girl. So, oop, I flopped this panel, didn't I? Yes, I did. Hair is parted on the wrong side. And that's the one thing I don't do with Finding D. I don't little Abner my hair like I did with Dandy and Company. With Dandy and Company, what side was Dandy's hair parted on? Whatever side was away from the camera, which is the kind of the little Abner thing. But I flopped the blue line for this, and I forgot about that. So originally we were both two panels were facing the same direction, and I figured it would be a little bit more dynamic if I swapped it up. The ear shape is just something that actually kind of developed over time, that weird little knot coming out. I don't know what inspired that per se. It's just a thing I started doing. Well, I started doing it in Marjorie, actually, and I think that might be where I got it from because I gave her it was, like, a part of the little demon ears, and it just kind of turned into the way I draw all ears with that little bit of a sticking out on the top, and it just kinda worked its way into Finding D in the strip a few years ago, and now it's just comfortable. It's like a little part of the character's model sheets. For a while there, I was trying to kinda challenge myself to get away from drawing myself in what looks like cartoon uniforms, where I'm wearing the same shirt all the time, and I found that was just something else that was adding to the stress of trying to do too many things and trying to be kinda perfect at them all, so I'm like, "Ah, just stick with the uniform. You wear a purple t-shirt. That's your cartoon uniform." Finding D and in Giant Girl, getting the curl of a boob line is just one of the damn hardest things to get nice and smooth. Yeah. Hi, Sophie. Yeah, I was challenging myself for a while artistically, and that's when a lot of those bigger, full page strips I was doing for a little while there, like, just before the pandemic and in the early days of the pandemic. I was doing a lot of those, and between that and working on the Giant Girl pages, and then I started with the novels, which I'm still working on all the time. There's only so many hours in the day, and for ultimately a punchline-driven comic strip, it just I was making my life so much more difficult than it needed to be. Just realized I haven't saved in a while. So, yeah, I kinda stopped with that, just, "No, just Heidi and I can have uniforms, basically, it's fine." Oh, wow, I got the eye line the way I wanted it first time. That's so rare. Okay, so let's see. How many? Okay, seem to be hovering around 5 folks on average. Working on a brand new since we got a couple new people in, working on a brand new Finding D strip that will be running in, January, about the 2nd week of January. I already got the first week's done. I'm gonna try to build up a nice buffer before they launch so that I have plenty of strips to kinda keep the strip running on a kind of a schedule. Although I'm not going to let myself worry too much about the schedule this time. If I fall behind on that or I'm not feeling it one week, I'm not going to drive myself nuts anymore. The strip will happen. It's going to keep coming out, but I'm not going to drive myself crazy about it anymore. A lot of things going on and can't do everything and give everything the same amount of attention. So going digital enables me to get a lot more work done quicker than if I was trying to do this on paper. And at the end of the day, I'm just so much more happier with finished product than I was when I was doing them on paper. I'm not unhappy with some of the paper ones I did but I have to put a lot more work in to get the lines with the line weight, for example. Like I have to fake it and double up on lines to get them to look this good if I'm working with a pen. If I'm working with a brush, it just takes too long. So here's this so people can see what I'm working on. So here's the strip. It's a 6 panel strip of when I was in the hospital, and the doctor's kind of asking about my lifestyle, and I'm talking about my lifestyle in as subtle a way as possible. If anyone has any questions whilst I am drawing, do not hesitate to ask. The more questions, the better. Gives me stuff to respond to, so I'm not just kind of trying to fill air, so to speak. It doesn't have to be about the strip or the art or what you're seeing. It should be questions in general. Yeah, feel free. I will do my best. Gotta go edit a podcast. Okay. Thank you for for coming in, checking out the thing. Again, I'll be doing this again next Tuesday. I'm gonna try to do one every week. And thanks again, and hope you have a good night. Kind of doing the little stand for the karaoke. Looks like the one at the wine bar Vino and Vibes that we go to. It's my favorite place to go karaoke. Here's a good time to showcase a saved action. You select that area, auto action, fill. 'Cause I don't like doing unnecessary work. A little bit of stage lights because some degree of a background comes in handy, even if I don't want to go nuts. But again, it can be really loose, just kind of indicative of a background. Thank you. Thank you, Gray. Yeah, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but did you? Yeah, I did. I heard about that earlier. Thank you. I had a good cry over lunch over that. Uh, I mean, aside from being an inspiration and all that, coming from the Florida convention scene, I knew George. I know George. It's everyone's talking about him like he's already gone. Um, not friend, not like close friends or anything, but definitely con friends. We'd always, we'd talk a little bit and say hello, and we've been out to group dinners and stuff like that. I used to bump into him at Chipotle. We lived in the same town for a while. Yeah, that's just a real shame, and it's terrible. Oh, okay, let me hit myself. I'm like, what's missing here? What's missing? And I forgot to do my outlines. See, I like to do these kind of thicker outlines, and it's something that I was avoiding doing for a while, just out of pure laziness. And literally, I got no other excuse other than I was being lazy. But anytime I'd hit the strip with this nice thicker outline around everything, it looks so much nicer. And it's the same with the Giant Girl pages. And it was working with Sabrina that really pushed me to work harder on that, because it was a lot of Sabrina's suggestions to work on my contour lines and give them a nicer, stronger push. And artistically speaking, working on Giant Girl with Sabrina has been, a massive, massive uptick in my art. Having that editorial voice of somebody to say, yeah, but what about this? Or could you maybe try doing that or tweak this? Or, get these really nice pieces of feedback to really refine those pages has gotten me out of a lot of comfort zones that I think were kind of a crutch to my art a little bit. And I think that if you go back and you look at the Finding D strips that I was doing before I started working on Giant Girl with Sabrina, to some of the findings to the strips that I started doing after the fact, to me, it's night and day. You know what? I do not need to redraw this doctor's head again. No, I do not. Because I not making busy work for myself. Because again, not much is changing for the doctor here, so why am I redrawing him? Change his expression a little bit. I am. Hey, Lisa, how are you doing? Glad to see you could make it. And hello to you and Jeremy as well. Hope you are all doing well. Congratulations on the successful Kickstarter. I'm so, so very, very happy. Ooh, that hand is terrible, and that is way too close to the body. This is a case where I'm going to create a new layer because the pencils are insufficient. Ergo, I'm going to go to a pencil tool now. And when blue lines fail, red lines. Nope, I don't like that. Flatterer, I'm here just over on the other machine doing background cleanups. Awesome, awesome. Not flattery. That's the blunt reality. That's better. So yeah, since let's see, Lisa's here. If anyone has any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Whenever anyone new pops in, I usually kind of start over with a little bit of the description. Working on a new Finding D strip. This one's going to be running the second week of January. And let me zoom out a little so you can kind of see where we're at. It's going to be a strip that's kind of chronicling the my pancreatitis back in July, which is what prompted the strip to go on hiatus. And I had a little bit of a breakdown at the time, and it was just way too much stuff going on. I've got the novels that I'm putting a lot of work into, and Giant Girl pages. And Finding D was just something that I needed to step away from and figure out whether or not it was something I wanted to keep doing. And I was planning at the time to do an omnibus of all the material that was already out there. And would have had like 9.5 issues worth of material. And I just sat on it. I sat on it for months. And I was like, I kind of realized after a while that I was sitting on it partly because I knew once I printed it, once I went and said, okay, that's it, print the omnibus, then the strip is over for good in my head. And so I think that's one of the reasons why I never printed the omnibus. The files were ready. It was a matter of uploading them and pushing a button, and they would have gone out, and the omnibus would have been, a thing. And there is currently no omnibus, and I have no plans of publishing it because I'm just going to keep going because I kind of found the voice again. And it took me a while, but I'm glad I waited. I'm glad I didn't kind of. Hey, Magnus. Welcome to the video. Just kind of going over a little bit of stuff as I work. Talking a bit about the process of deciding to come back to the strip after a few months off. And a lot happened in that time. I had the pancreatitis, which was a really long recovery period, which only just kind of now is, getting past that. Heidi and I both ended up with COVID for a while. She had it a lot worse than I did, but we both did have it. A lot of stuff knocked us on our butts, and we're getting back, we're back on our feet and everything's back to normal. I've got the energy again. And so, now I'm going to do this series of strips that's kind of all about the pancreatitis, the importance of taking a much needed break. Yes. Now, of course, once the strip gets past this story arc, I'm going to actually have to revise the design because I've lost about 50 pounds. Heidi and I have both lost a lot of weight. And so the style guide for how I draw myself is going to have to change accordingly. Getting my nose just where I want it is very weird. I'm very particular about the curve of the way I draw my nose. So yeah, if we got a couple of new folks in here. Anyone has any questions about anything, don't hesitate to ask. More questions, the more I have stuff to talk about, the more interesting it gets. It's not just me repeating myself. Jeremy says, just Photoshop it. If I didn't think it would be harder to try and do things like manipulate, like copy a nose from one panel to the next, more often than not, it would actually be harder for me because I tried doing that like back when I was working on Dandy and stuff. Unless it's something like the doctor whose face is not moving from panel to panel. But here I really want to have a different expression from the panel where I was in the bed prior. So I really don't want to do one of those like the old, the Flash comic strip style thing where everything is, cut and paste sprites being patched together. I have tried avoiding that the entirety of my career as a webcomic artist, and maybe I'd be more successful if I did it because I could get more stuff done. But I like the cartooning. I like the drawing. I do make my life more difficult than it needs to be, though. No doubt. So yeah, since we got some new folks in here, I'm working in Clip Studio Paint. And the brush is, I'll eventually put the name of the brush package in the comments when the video's over. But it's a brush that it's called Lando Calbrushian. And I love this brush. As you can kind of see, based on how much pressure I'm putting down, you get these really, really beautiful thin, thick lines and feathering. It is the closest to working with an actual brush that I've ever had digitally, except that I can do so much more, so much quicker. If I was doing this with an actual brush, I'd still be at least on panel 2. And here I've only been going a little bit under an hour, and I am almost done with 4 full panels. And that 5th panel will probably be pretty easy because there's a lot of stuff I can copy from that too. Weird little hand gestures here. I'm shooting Spider-Man webs at the doctor. Thwip. You can see sometimes the blue lines end up being very, very much a suggestion based on what ends up on the actual page. Heidi's face changed somewhat dramatically from blue lines to finished inks. She kind of turns over to look at me. There we go. Nope. God, one line is just killing me. I nervously talk to the doctor. No, I don't need a remarkably high-fat diet or take an excessive amount of ibuprofen or overdrink on occasion. No, of course not. If you're still here, Desi, but you have never seen me drink an entire bottle of wine at karaoke. Oh, starting to run out of things to talk about. Anyone have any questions? Exactly. Yeah, when I went in, when I was in the hospital, I was in the hospital for about 4 days back in July, and the doctors kinda were just running down the list of things that might have been the problems. My hormones got changed afterwards. I was on one kind of medication. They took me off that. I had a bad reaction to being off of it. They put me on some new stuff. I'm loving it. It's been great. Um, Charlie Brown mouth there. Um, I was taking ibuprofen like it was my job, so found out that was a potential cause. Um, we had just started going back to karaoke just before the pancreatitis, and I really was enjoying the wine a bit too much. So it's kind of was probably a perfect storm of things that contributed to the body breaking down a little bit. And the doctors were just kind of like, I don't know, which is frustrating. It's just kind of like, I want to know exactly what was wrong with me and how to make it not happen again and not just have a blanket statement of do nothing bad ever, which is kind of what I got left with, including discharge paperwork that told me I didn't have to adjust my diet at all, which, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thankfully, my actual doctor said, what the F and fuck, and, told me to do this, that, and the other thing. And I've been trying to stick with that. It was easy for the first few months when it literally hurt to eat things that were not good for me. But that went away after a while, and so now I got to work. Now I work a little bit harder to maintain the diet. Yeah, just you want some kind of conclusive answer, and the doctors are just like, Meh, we don't know. And you're just kind of like, why was I here for 4 fucking days? You ran all these tests on me, or taking my blood constantly and scanning me like you're in fucking like I'm in freaking sick bay. And they still came back with "Nah," and then paperwork that didn't tell me that I needed to adjust my diet, which I absolutely needed to do. So, talked to my regular doctor, got that sussed out, adjusted my diet appropriately, and here we are. I was saying earlier, and I think we have some new people that are here since then. Once the storylines in the strip get past the period of pancreatitis, it'll be an interesting development because I'm going to have to me and Heidi both are going to have slightly revised model sheet designs because we've both lost a bunch of weight. And I always try to keep the strip up to date with, whatever our haircuts are and stuff like that. So glad someone was doing their job for us. Let me see here. Yeah, the ER is definitely a crapshoot. And in the hospital itself was very, very weird. And there's a bunch of things that happened in there that, will be working their way into the strip here. Um, Little jokes here and, little funny moments. Because again, even though it was a really stressful period when it was happening, the whole idea of Finding D is, as a comic strip, me finding ways to, find humor in all these different things that occur in my life. Yeah, it is very difficult sometimes, and there's periods where I've ignored entirely certain things that were happening. But that was kind of the idea behind the strip. The impetus behind it was me trying to figure out early on, and because it started very much when it started, it was very much all me being trans all the time. That was what the strip was kind of about. And it really has since evolved into more of a day in the life kind of thing. And part of that came about because, I was having these experiences that were for me brand new, but that for so many other women out there was just everyday things like the stress. Well, it's still one of the most popular strips I've ever done, but the stress of trying to find a bra that is both cute, fits, and is cheap. That trifecta, that perfect storm. And when I did that strip, even though it was about my experiences and, me at the time being 41 when I wrote the strip, experiencing all that for the first time and being like, wow, this is a thing. And so many people were just like, yes, it is a thing. Well, it, that's the kind of thing I discovered, is that I was telling my specific part of the story as a transgender woman, and discovering that so much of the experience outside of the specifics was universal. There was a lot of things in it that were just, it wasn't about me being transgender. It was just about people. And a lot of people found, that common ground in the strip. So I'm really happy about that. And, I would deal with things like, jerks with the bathroom stuff and drama about that. And it would work its way into the strip so I could find that punchline. I do not want to, obviously, I don't want to restart my computer right now. Doing something. Um, yeah, that's kind of the crux of the strip, is about trying to find those moments. And here my arm is actually over the railing, so I got to do some erasing. But I gotta say, it's kind of worked. I definitely, and this is a case with the novels and the other stuff that I've written as well, where I will absolutely use fiction as therapy. As much as I've worked through certain issues with Finding D in regards to, say, my transition, or, I've got family issues and things like that, when those books of mine eventually do come out, a lot of that worked its way into the novels. And it won't take people long to figure out that, you know, in these werewolf novels, werewolf is transgender. It's definitely me making allegories and analogies and stuff like that to those experiences and feelings and things, because that's kind of what inspired the books. And so, and this is something that, doing writing with Sabrina and over the years has helped me work through, is that I found myself creating these characters and these situations that allowed me to use the fictional characters to work through some of my real life issues and some of my real life problems and some of my real life hangups, you know, dealing with, depression and anxiety and all of these things that can be really crippling. Um, if I let them cripple me, working through stresses and stuff like that. Because I guess if cartoon me can figure out how to laugh at, people being cruel or mean, then maybe real life me can, was the idea. And in some cases it worked. Um, I would give cartoon D a little bit more strength than real world D had to stand up to people or to, walk into the bathroom, like I own the place instead of hanging my head and feeling like I did something wrong for wanting to pee because, of this weird zeitgeist that had been happening. And the more cartoon D did it, the easier it got for real D to work up that nerve. And then the more real D does it, the easier it gets. With anything like that, really, it's that I know there's a phrase for it, exposure therapy. And it's the same with the novels and anything else that I work on. There's always going to be a little bit of that me working through real world issues by coming up with ways for fictional characters or fictionalized versions of myself in the case of the strip to figure out how to deal with something that I'm having a problem dealing with in reality. Very long way to answer a question. I know these are all supposed to go about an hour, but I'm also really close to the end of this one strip. So obviously, I'm not going to just stop with half a panel to go. That would be foolish. And again, when I said these were going to be an hour, it's more of a tentative hour ish. Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. I just have one pinky out. I don't know where that comes from. I'm not that classy. I always draw it. Whirling, whirling, whirling. Yeah, that's true. They are good for silhouettes. Hi, Frank. Steal a line from Bloom County. I'm going to draw some cranial smoke here. Oh, the joke from Bloom County I always loved was a cranial smoke, carcinogenic if inhaled. Heidi chucking a thumb back at where the doctor just was. Yeah, it took a while to really come down with how I wanted to draw us as cartoon characters, and I finally feel like I've got like a solid model sheet, like that I could, if I had to give this to an artist for like an animated something or other, I feel confident now. That really took a while. A mean head. A potato. A potato. Gotta run and feed the fam dinner. Can't wait to visit again. I'll be here again next week. Thanks for watching for a while, Lisa. Have a good night. Hi, Nikki. How goes it? If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. We're actually getting near the end of this video. But you got in under the wire. Let's see, where did I? Yep, I knew I messed some up. Haha. Let's see what I found from reading your work. It's just straight middle-aged guys that you are just telling your story. I loved your stuff from the first panel because it's coming from a sincere and honest place. There's a real connection to how awkward it is to be human. Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. Just got home from the Christmas program. I hope it went well, Nikki. I forgot to draw the wristband because I drew it in the first panel. That hospital wristband, which I actually still have up in a little Snoopy cup on the top of my desk. I saved it when I got home from the hospital. I can't get through, there's too much crap in the cup. But I saved it because it was one of the first official things that I'd gotten from something like that that said D. Sarah Fish on it. So I was I was like very much like, nope, nope. Okay, I'll knock all those toys over if I try to. I had to take Iron Man out of the cup to try to find the little tag, but I can't fit him back in right. There's something else in there. But yeah, I kept my little wristband from when I got out of the hospital because it said D. Sarah Fish on it. And I was super excited about that. Although one of the weirdest things that it says D. Sarah Fish. It says it properly, but in the hospital, the entire time I was there, they all called me Sarah. It was very distracting. I don't mind. I picked the name on purpose. I like it. It is one of my names. Um, but I was always, I never understood why on my paperwork it came up as Sarah, not D, not D. The first couple of times I was like, huh? Are you talking to me? Aw, I'm glad it went well. Yeah, I drew the little name tag on the left wrist there. I think it was on my right wrist in reality. I can't remember. I mirror everything. It's actually one of the ways that cartoon D and real D is different is that my hair part's on the opposite side of cartoon D. And I'm going to do my signature in the second panel, which is rare, but it's the most open spot. Okay, let me do my background curtain. Curtains, see curtains. I'm going to draw this once, I think, because I'll end up copying it over in Photoshop. Because I'll do the backgrounds with tones and everything, so it makes more sense to do the curtains like this. Draw them on one layer here. We are getting near the end of the video here, so if anyone has any questions, this is the time to ask. We're getting near the end, so if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I will endeavor to answer them before we wrap this up. It's actually blinds. I just don't feel like drawing blinds. And again, sometimes with the backgrounds with Finding D, it's way more about just kind of perpetuating the idea that there is a background, that the world does in fact continue into there. It isn't just a bunch of shapes. Which usually it is, just a blank gray void behind us as stuff is happening. I'm not usually too worried about it. You'll notice I'm drawing over the art. That's all. It's on a separate layer, so it'll all be erased. Or in this case, it'll be masked out behind the figures because I'll end up pathing and masking them in Photoshop to make it easier to tone. Nice thing about drawing the backgrounds complete is that I'm going to be in the hospital for at least 2 or 3 more strips. So if I draw it from this point of view, I don't have to draw this curtain again. Do a little bit of my, something I got from Bloom County, basically, of putting like little scritchy lines in the corners to kind of just indicate that there's a wall or some they're in a space. You're not just out in the open air. It's just a thing I like to do. Gives a little texture to the area. But yeah, that's, to me, that's more than enough that I need to just kind of give the indication of, you know, space and reality. With the shadow shot line here. I don't like going too nuts with the background. I just like to keep it loose. But again, I'll take this into Photoshop and I'll dupe it behind everyone for the 4 panels. So I can just blow it up a little bit here and blur it out a little. So here we are. Let's see, it's 8:30. I started drawing at about 8:10, so a little over an hour to finish the page. And I hope you enjoyed watching me make it. I'm going to keep trying to do more of these every Tuesday because that Tuesdays are going to be my day to make new strips. So I'm going to try to get new strips done every Tuesday, and I will be streaming them. That's my day. So hopefully it's a good day and folks will want to tune in. And thank you everyone who did tune in. I really, really appreciate it. Thanks for virtually hanging out with me. And I hope you enjoy the strip when it comes back around. And, until then, enjoy a hamburger on me. Thank you very, very much.